What's up, everybody, and welcome to Real Time for the Real Everyday Movie Fan. I'm Ryan Murphy,
And I'm James Sheridan.
and today we are talking to you about James's favorite Christmas movies because, let's face facts, guys, anyone who knows me knows I have one, and that is Die Hard. That is the greatest Christmas movie of all time. There's nothing that will ever approach it. I really don't. Well, that's not true. I have a couple favorites that I'll talk about, but this is we're going to talk about a lot of James's, and we're going to try and keep it to it under an hour. We'll see if we succeed. But this is like I think our first or one of our first in a long time reviews without Josh. Josh has this thing he's busy with called a family, and James and I are
I
going to be
heard those
doing.
are important.
Those are kind of important,
Yeah.
but James and I are going to be doing this. And yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Try and get this up on Christmas Day. So first off, we can agree that Die Hard is a great Christmas movie. Anyone who says it's not a Christmas movie is a liar. It ends on Let It Snow. It ends on the line, if this is your idea of Christmas, I gotta be here for New Year's. It's about the importance of family, the importance of keeping loyal to your marriage. It's just a great way to ring in the holidays. The Yuletide explosions of joy.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say about that. If you haven't seen Die Hard, watch it. It's a great movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
I'm amused by how Die Hard has become sort of like a must-have name on Christmas lists, when for a long time, like, people didn't really, like, people had to make an argument for Die Hard being a Christmas movie. And it was like a thing to try and argue that Die Hard was a Christmas movie. And everyone's like, yeah, but is it really? And, but like, it's now just kind of accepted as a Christmas movie. And if you don't have it on your list, it's kind of like everyone kind of like, no one takes you seriously kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That said, it's actually not on my list. One, because I know it's on your list. So like, let's eschew that and like forget about that. And two, because I didn't actually grow up with Die Hard. Die Hard was something I didn't experience until college. And I give it its full due. It's a fantastic action film. Started a lot of fantastic tropes. Bruce Willis was already starting to become a personality, but like, this was his sort of like breakout. And of course, what would the film industry be without Bruce Willis? And like, John McClane is such an iconic character. It's, the villain is so iconic, and rest in peace. His name is escaping me, as all names seem to. Alan Rickman, thank you, who is just an outstanding actor and like sorely missed in the filmmaking world. But I've got no dog in that fight as to whether or not it's a Christmas movie. So yeah,
I can't wait to watch it tomorrow. We're recording this on December 23rd. I'm looking forward to watching it tomorrow with my family. So.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to represent both me and Josh, because I know there's a few that are on his list that are also on my list, but I want to make sure that they're spoken. And the first and foremost, the one that for me is a staple that you have to watch every year, and unfortunately because of TBS, it's sort of, everyone's kind of tired of it now. Whereas when I was growing up, nobody knew about this movie, and it was like, if you knew about this movie, you were cool. You were one of the people who, like, it was kind of like a badge of honor to know this movie and to be able to quote it. And it's just like, everyone I love just adores this movie. So, and that's A Christmas Story. The classic story of a kid begging his parents for a toy that he really doesn't need, because, of course, you'll shoot your eye out. Mm-hmm. The prophetic term that they use throughout the film that ends up becoming true. Spoiler, but the film's 30 years old, and if you haven't seen it on Christmas in America, like, do you not have cable?
To be fair, he doesn't actually shoot his eye out. That would be a dark-ass ending to A Christmas Story.
No, but it's near enough too. Like, the point is made that this thing's a dangerous toy, and
but he also got hurt because of it. But he also ends up with it, and like the ending scene is him snuggling with the toy that he always
And someone pointed out to me recently was that he spends the entire movie asking everybody for this gun. He asks his teacher, he asks his mother, he asks Santa Claus. He never asks his dad. Mm-hmm. And it's his dad who ends up getting him the gun at Christmas. And the scene where his dad gives it to him just evokes so much like childhood memory of like I think for most kids, like, the mom bought the gifts, and the dad was just kind of like, there's a great Baby Yoda meme going around where like one is like him sipping on his bone broth, and it's like the mom just watching the kids opening the Christmas presents that she bought them, and then the dad sitting there just as shocked and surprised about all the things because he has no idea what it is. But it's always cool when the dad gets you that one thing,
Mhm.
that he knows you love, and like I have those memories, and just um, it's just such a funny, so quotable movie. Like just so many great lines, just such a funny story. Um, Iconic scenes like getting your tongue stuck to a pole, which any kid in
Uh,
Canada knows that pain.
I love the idea. Anyone in Canada, like, there's a lot of places in the world, but I suppose it's cold everywhere in Canada. So,
uh, I mean Vancouver's pretty chill. The East Coast is kind of warm. They don't have as harsh of winters, but it is kind of like it reflected my childhood in a lot of ways, and
yeah.
it's just such a great um, depiction of like childhood experience of Christmas. Whereas like most other films are kind of from the adult's perspective.
Mhm.
This is definitely from the kid's perspective about Christmas, and I love that.
Well, the interesting thing about if you watch the Nostalgia Critic, who's used to be one of my favorite guys. I haven't watched him in about a decade because he started sucking after he sort of
Yeah.
did the reboot of his show. But he used to have a really good show, and he did this top. I always one of my favorite things to watch on Christmas. Make sure I watch every Christmas. We'll just use this as an aside. Is his top 12 Christmas? So I watch his top 12 Christmas countdown and the next one he did, the next top 12 and the next top 11. I watch those as my Christmas special. And he always talks about Christmas stories is his number one. And what he always says about it is it's not from the perspective of the kid. It's from the perspective of the kid as an adult.
As an
Which is a
adult
huge
remembering
difference.
his childhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
So,
rose-colored glasses nostalgia thing, and
mhm.
like that is part of the fun of it, is that like all this wacky shit happens in it, and it's like it's not as it was. It's just how he saw it, which again harkens back to our conversation about the Goldbergs during our '80s nostalgia episode,
Mhm.
um, where it's not about the events that actually happen. It's about how he feels about them, and yeah, that's like a great part of this story. And um, I'm not a big Christmas guy. I'm kind of more of a Grinch type character, where like I'm not warm and nostalgic about it, but this movie gets me. And actually, some of the other ones on my list are going to be like, I claim I'm not a Christmas guy, but when I look at this list, it's like, oh, maybe I am. Maybe I'm just old and bitter.
Well, let's go ahead and go to some of your other ones. So, James, what's next on your list?
I'm going to go and unfortunately, when I was forming this list, Josh was going to be part of our conversation, so I actually just tacked a few on at the end. So my list is not actually in order of like anything. So I'm going to go with a Charlie Brown Christmas,
Hmm.
which may not be everyone's cup of tea. I absolutely love the Peanuts. Charlie Brown and Snoopy are two of my favorite all-time characters. Um, and I think this is just one of those, like everyone, when they think about their childhood and all the specials that were on TV that they watch, they mention Garfield or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and, Santa Claus is coming to town. Um, all kinds of, great famous examples. But Charlie Brown Christmas to me is one of the absolute staples, along with A Christmas Story. Um, it's got so many great iconic moments. It's the dance scene is famous. Like everyone knows the little dance scene and the little actions that the kids are doing, like the
Mhm.
ridiculous little dances they're doing, the music for it, da, 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 da. Like it
Yeah.
became the Peanuts theme. Um, Even the Christmas theme that they have throughout it became like the sad theme in Arrested Development. So whenever somebody's sad and walks away slowly, they stole it from a Charlie Brown Christmas. Um, and it's also a very strange one where like most films about Christmas are sort of secular, whereas this one actually like sits there and quotes scripture. Like Linus goes up and talks about the meaning of Christmas,
Mhm.
and that's such a like standout thing to have. Of course, this was made in the 1960s when you know there was a little
Society.
more religion in Christmas, and it was not necessary. Like people who don't usually go to church went to church on Christmas Day, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, so like it's not surprising that is part of it, but like it does seem to be a standout. Whereas like I can't think of another one that kind of like without it being an overtly religious film, like the Nativity Story or something, where it's about like where it addresses the Christian aspect of Christmas.
Sure. Yeah.
Next on my list, Muppets Christmas Carol.
Well, I think any version of I think if there's one other thing I would say besides Die Hard, it would be just the story of A Christmas Carol, which I've read before. I've always been meaning to read again. I always want to read to my children when I have children, if I have children. Is the story of A Christmas Carol, and again, to quote sort of my icon in terms of reviews is the Nostalgia Critic. In his Christmas Countdown, he talked about he had his number 2 behind A Christmas Story was A Christmas Carol, and he followed that up with saying, which version? Any of them. There's
that's fair.
To choose from. But the Muppet Christmas Carol in your mind is, I know obviously Michael Caine is a terrific actor. So
I mean, Michael Caine, I could watch that man act doing anything. Like, he's just outstanding. Like, he's the one part of Jaws 4 that makes Jaws 4 worth watching, and that nothing else in that movie is worth watching.
I have to say, we love doing our asides, like our little tangents in real time. I will say, have you heard his quote about Jaws 4 where he said,
I didn't see the film, but I saw The House It Paid For, and it's spectacular.
Yep.
Yep, it's one of my all-time favorite quotes. I was actually going to mention that too. But yeah, Muppets Christmas, like, again, Christmas Carol, the story of Ebenezer Scrooge is such a, iconic sort of story for Christmas. It's one of those ultimate redemption stories. Those sort of like fall from grace where like he has those hard lessons to learn that, not even just all the versions of Christmas Carol, but like all the versions of all kinds of stories that borrow a very similar sort of like taking somebody through their past, to show all of their terrible sins. That's such a common trope in story now that it almost feels unoriginal, but somehow A Christmas Carol still feels like, it's the one that did it right, and it's the one that did it best. And of course it's the Muppets. Like, yeah. I adore the Muppets. The Muppets are one of those things from my childhood that even as an adult, I still can't get enough of. So having like a musical movie, and it's the first one without Jim Henson too. So it's actually, it's kind of bittersweet because it's the first time that you're seeing some of the old guard be replaced, but at the same time, it still has that Muppet sort of spirit and energy before they started to peter off in the late 90s.
Yeah.
It's just such a fun, happy, good movie with like a classic story and great characters and Gonzo narrating the entire thing. And yeah, it's just like great jokes, great lines, great musical segments.
I know my mom really likes the Disney version where it's Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck.
And Scrooge McDuck. That's actually where Scrooge McDuck came from before the Carl Banks comics, which eventually became adapted into DuckTales, which if you, again, an aside, but if you guys haven't seen the revamped DuckTales series, I am so heartbroken that it's getting canceled after this season because it is one of the best remakes I have ever seen because it pays great tribute to the original series and the comics. I'm going off on a complete tangent. This has nothing to do with Christmas, but just go see DuckTales. Just see
Welcome to ReelTime, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I can't decide. On the flip side of that one, I'm going to talk about It's a Wonderful Life, which might actually be my personal favorite Christmas movie.
This is the interesting thing about my family, is I have 2 generations of women who hate Christmas classics. My grandmother, who I love as much as any person in the world, hates It's a Wonderful Life. She hates Jimmy Stewart. She's 90-something years old. She grew up in the 1940s with Jimmy Stewart, and she could never stand him. And then she hates It's a Wonderful Life. She can't stand it. My mother hates A Christmas Story. I didn't mention this. So my mother's fine with It's a Wonderful Life. She'll watch it every time it's on TV on Christmas Eve. She hates A Christmas Story. So I have these 2 generations of women who hate these universally acclaimed Christmas movies. I'm kind of ambivalent about both, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's just a fun little aside of that these women in my life hate these movies.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who aren't a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life, but I love Jimmy Stewart. He's one of my all-time favorite actors. Frank Capra is like one of the greatest directors of all time, just an iconic director. And this, to me, might be his best film, which is saying something because he did some bangers. but it like A Christmas Carol. It's one of those stories that has been imitated time and time again. If you don't know, it's about a guy in a small town who's trying so hard to get out of the town. He just wants to go see the world. That's his only ambition in life, is to travel the world and see things. But because of circumstances within the town and the people that depend on him, he can't leave. And through the course of his life, he's affected all of these lives. But through a series of unfortunate circumstances, he really bad, crazy stuff happens to him, and he ends up very desperate, very depressed, standing on the edge of a bridge, contemplating his own death. And he sees a body fall in the water. He jumps in and saves it, and it turns out that the body was an angel, and the angel had been sent to stop him from doing something terrible. And the angel takes him through his life and shows him all of the circumstances and events, and more importantly, shows what the world would be like without him, which again is such a common story to do nowadays. It's such a ubiquitous story. Like, it's been cribbed time and time again, but this is like the prime example of it. And the ending to it's like, it gets me every time. I've seen it 1,000 times and it still gets me. It and E.T. can make me tear up like nothing else. And it's just Jimmy Stewart being charming and funny and, all kinds of, dramatic, and just, it's such a great, wonderful Christmas story. By the end, this guy is just appreciating his life, and he just can't wait to see everybody. And he looks like a madman running down the street, just hugging strangers and kissing babies. And you find out that everybody's like grateful for him, and everybody came together to help him at the end to deal with like all these circumstances that were going against him. And again, I just can't imagine Christmas without It's a Wonderful Life.
Well, I will say this. I do have two other things that I do actually find myself watching around Christmas time, and they're both the season 2 and season 3 episodes of The Office. So if I can talk about those for a moment, the season 2.
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, my entire family, my dad's side of the family, the Murphys and the Sheelys. If you're watching, guys, I love you. We every year we used to do. Certainly haven't done it in 2020, but we used to do the white elephant, or whatever they call it, nasty Christmas,
Yeah.
Christmas, whatever, where we have gifts and we swap them and people can take them according to the rules. I remember one year, I think someone got me specifically, because I was a little kid. They got me a little brontosaurus plush toy, and I was terrified that someone was going to take it, which of course they weren't, because it was intended for this small child. So I went upstairs and hid it in the top of the room. But I grew up with that Yankee Christmas, and there's this great episode, the season 2 Christmas episode of The Office, is when they have a Yankee swap Christmas, and of course Michael ruins it because he ruins everything. And he just,
well, it wasn't supposed to be Yankee swap. It was just supposed to be normal
Yes.
gift exchange. So all these people got these gifts with this intention. And part of the great plot of it is that Jim got Pam this teapot with all these memories inside of it that to anybody else means absolutely nothing. So part of the joke is that once Michael gets, Michael, and changes it to a Yankee swap because he's mad that he got mittens when he got Ryan an iPod,
yeah,
which totally breaks the $20 rule that they set.
Mhm.
He has to have a fit and change everything, and the teapot becomes such an iconic part of the show.
Yeah.
And there's a little note inside that they never revealed what it said.
But it was Jim telling Pam how he felt, which she never received. He may have given it to her after they got together and got married and had 2 kids.
No, this is a season 6. No, season 9. What was the last season?
Season 9 was the last season.
Season 9. In one of the final episodes, when like Jim and Pam are having a problem, he gives her the card.
Oh, I forgot about that, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like they didn't reveal what it was, but like it's this big thing where fans constantly ask her what it says, and like it's like everybody latches onto that. So yeah, that episode is really important to the plot and scope of The Office. Not even just as a Christmas episode, but it's just a Jim and Pam character growth thing.
Well, yeah, and there's that, and there's also the season 3 Christmas episode, which is a Benny Honey Christmas, which is great because it's where Jim and Dwight and Andy go off to have a Christmas lunch at the like Japanese restaurant, And it's just a fun episode where Michael gets this rebound girlfriend because he just got dumped by his girlfriend, and they pick up these two ladies and take them back to the Christmas party they're having. Both episodes are just a lot of fun. They're just really funny. There's also the original British comedy TV show. If you don't know, British TV works a little bit differently, where they're not as concerned as going on as long as they possibly can. So they just had 2 seasons and then a Christmas special to end it. And the Christmas special that ends it is great. One of the problems I always had with the American show is there wasn't a great, you know how obsessed I am with like romance. I'm a total girl at heart when it comes to that. They never had a great romance moment where Jim and Pam finally got together. There's a moment where he asks her out to dinner, and then when they finally really get together, it was off screen. But there's an epic moment at this Christmas party in the Office British TV special where Tim and Don, who are the analogs in the British TV series, get together. But it's a Christmas episode altogether. So I would say those 3 episodes of The Office, different versions of The Office, but those 3 episodes are, for me, really great Christmas specials. So.
Yeah. It probably wouldn't surprise you to learn that there's actually a Quebec version of The Office.
Yes,
there's like
I know.
dozens of versions of The Office.
You don't even know. My ambition in life is to watch every version of The Office, but I'm having a devil's time trying to get a hold of the foreign version. Like I press VPN to watch the German version, and I couldn't quite make it work. So, I mean, if you have any way of helping me watch the Quebec version or the German,
I don't even know where it would be.
Or the Chinese
they've kind of got their own thing going on up there, so I can try and track it down for you, but I don't even know where you'd watch it.
That's my ambition, is to watch every international version of The Office. So, but go ahead. What's your next Christmas special?
Well, I've done a bunch of like classic ones. I'm gonna go with some more modern. I mean, 2 of them from the 80s and 90s, but Home Alone.
Sure. Yeah.
To me, and this is another one that fits into that conversation with Die Hard, where it's like, is it a Christmas movie? It's set at Christmas, but it's not about Christmas. And I would argue that while it's not about Christmas itself, it's about the spirit of Christmas, because it's about family and, appreciating what you have. And like the whole subplot with like the whole lesson that Kevin learns is that he does need his family, and his family is important to him. And the moment where the family comes home and he sees his mom for the first time, and it's just the score is iconic, the script is iconic, and Christopher Columbus wrote it, or
he directed
it.
John Hughes wrote it,
and John Hughes wrote it, and it's such a John Hughes film. Like, I know it's a Chris Columbus film, but like all of the feeling, all of the sentiment, all of the characters, the setting. It even ends on a like classic John Hughes freeze frame, which all of his films end on. And it's such a, I don't know. I love Home Alone. It's one of those, like, I don't feel guilty about loving that one. And I don't care what anyone says. It's a Christmas movie.
Of course.
And it's just fun. It's just fun to watch these 2 like bumbling villains try and deal with a kid who's, set a death trap house. He's basically created Saw within his house, but it's played for laughs. Like, imagine that as a horror film.
Yeah. No,
like a Christmas horror film.
But to be fair, I really feel like anyone who's like saying, well, that's not a Christmas movie, is just a hater. Like anyone, like, look, if you enjoy any movie that takes place around Christmas can be a Christmas movie. And 2 movies that no one ever talks about because they're terrible and they should never be considered Christmas classics are Batman Returns and Iron Man 3. But I don't like either of those movies.
God, Iron Man 3 was at Christmas.
Yeah, I know. Like, you know how much I hate Iron Man 3. But if you want to consider it a Christmas movie, I have no issue with that. I have an issue with you thinking it's a good movie. That's different. Any movie that takes place around Christmas, you can consider a Christmas movie. It's fine. So
you're gonna. You made a joke the other day about about me continually bringing this up, but I want to test your theory. Then Ghostbusters 2.
Is that around Christmas?
It's actually that's the climax is on New Year's. And it's not really about Christmas or has anything to do with Christmas, but like the season is definitely in that range, and you definitely see them wearing Santa hats at certain points.
Okay, then go ahead. It's a Christmas movie. So.
I don't consider it a Christmas movie. I consider it a New Year's movie, but
there you go.
Just to test your theory. And yeah, I love Home Alone. It's just such a fun film. I don't know how it doesn't get people in the spirit. And of course, Macaulay Culkin is a blast. The villains are a blast.
Mhm.
Um, what's his name's scream is one of the most iconic screams in film history, as far as I'm concerned.
Daniel Stern.
Daniel Stern's scream when that spider's on him is just mwah. And stepping off of that into a similar realm of John Hughes ish is Christmas Vacation,
Mm-hmm.
which people will take or leave. It's not. I don't know if it's necessarily aged the best, but I think it's got some outstanding comedy bits. It's got some like the Griswold house lit up is one of those just like
Yeah.
iconic Christmas moments that you can't get away from.
The
Just the
sled also
continued.
rolling down the hill.
That is one of the best comedy scenes of all time. Just like yeah, and
See,
it's
I
just
finally
it's.
watched that. There's people in my life who are like, you gotta watch this, like everything. And
Mhm.
like Chad Tim, one of my teachers, who's my I'm blessed to call a friend of mine from college. He's one of those guys that's just, this is a Christmas classic. You have to watch it. And partially because of him, I finally watched it at like the age of 30 something. And I have to say, I was like, but obviously it has some very iconic moments, like the sled and
Yeah,
in the house. And just like, yes, I understand that there's moments in this that are just synonymous with Christmas and watching TV
yeah,
on Christmas. Yeah. And it includes them watching It's a Wonderful Life, which is like it's
yeah,
further
yeah.
evidence for It's a Wonderful Life being the ultimate Christmas
And
movie.
I love that it's a typically '80s film where it's entirely about sort of like material wealth. Like this is a family that's not poor by any stretch of the imagination. They got a huge house.
Mhm.
They do pretty well. They've got 2 cars, which I guess in the '80s wasn't that wild of a thing, but where I came from, that didn't really happen. Um, and it's entirely about this guy wanting a pool. Like his entire arc in this story is about him wanting this pool, and he's waiting for this bonus from work, and all this like crazy stuff that happens to him. And then the climax of the film is him kidnapping his boss
God.
because he didn't get the bonus he wanted.
Yeah.
And it's like that. It's such an '80s comedy perspective. Like you can't make that kind of movie now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just again, it's not necessarily my favorite, but I think some of the iconic moments are just things that you have to have at Christmas. Like again, the lights and that sledding scene makes me laugh every time. It's just so absurd, and it still has that touch of Hughes because Hughes was kind of like interlaced with the National Lampoon Vacation franchise. I don't know if
He
he
was a
had much to
co-writer.
do with this one. Was he on
Yeah.
this one? Okay,
Yeah.
but like his influence is all over it. So, and I love John Hughes. Um, and the last one on my list, which is probably one of my modern favorites, which again, this one just, I say I'm a Grinch, but this one just kind of like alludes to the fact that I'm a child inside. Elf, which is the
Yeah.
one role, the one Will Ferrell role where I absolutely actually just love what he does. Because most of the time I can't stand most of his roles. He was
Mhm.
fantastic on Saturday Night Live, and then he just became like this version of Will Ferrell that I can't stand, except in
Screaming
Elf.
Machine. Yeah. Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah.
And Elf, he's just like this giant child, and like his dad is, I'm forgetting the actor's name.
How dare you, sir? One of the
Oh
stars
no, I can hear
greatest
his
of all
voice.
time, James Caan of The Godfather.
No, no, I
Corleone.
mean, no, like his adopted father,
Oh, Bob Newhart.
his
Yeah.
elf father, Bob Newhart,
Bob
who is
Newhart.
just
Yeah.
one of the all-time great comedy acts, and
Mhm.
he's just such a great deadpan. And Ed Asner plays Santa, which again, fantastic. Mary Steenburgen as the sort of like a guest stepmom,
Yeah. Isn't it
and yes,
Peter
James
Dinklage as the
Peter
midget?
Dinklage
Yeah.
makes a great cameo
It's got a great
before
cast.
Peter Dinklage was Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, exactly. Before he was
He's an
Tyrion
angry
Lannister.
elf,
He's an angry elf.
and just like yeah, it's got so many great like it. It's so seeped in this character's love of Christmas and his love of just joy and being happy and providing happiness for other people. Um, the scene where he like takes over the department store and like decorates it in a night, and it's like this absolute like no human being could do that. Not even an elf could do that, and it's just such a magical scene of just watching him build stuff.
The
And
line
then
I
the
always, yeah, the line I always remember is, "I just love smiling. Smiling's my favorite. Make work your favorite."
Work is your favorite now.
Yeah.
You sit on a throne of
You sit on
lies.
a throne of. Yeah, there's a lot of great lines from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
When
it's
he
like
walks into
dark
the
film too. Like at one point he's contemplating suicide. Like, holy shit, is this the same movie?
and he gets his dad a negligee for Christmas because it's for someone special, and
What
he
is that?
doesn't understand. He he sees in the store a sign that says for someone special, and it's this negligee, which is obviously meant for a woman, and he gets his male father this
Mm-hmm.
thing for Christmas because he doesn't understand. He's an elf. He's from the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that all the characters in the North Pole, besides the elves, are stop motion animation, like cartoonish characters, Mr. Narwhal and the penguins or the puffins and the snowman. So it like harkens back to the old Rankin Bass, which are such a part of Christmas. Not my favorite part because I don't think they've aged very well, but people love them. So, I mean, we'd be remiss not to mention them. So there's your mention. Um, but I love Elf, and I think it's one of the few times I actually really love Zoe Deschanel because I think she ends up playing the same character in every role, and she just becomes a manic pixie dream girl in just about everything she does. But in this one, like because she is a straight man to his absurdity, I think she plays that sort of like I'm not sure what to make of you, but you're kind of adorably charming that I can't help but actually kind of like you kind of thing. Um, and of course the climax where like he even gets his dad to sing, and it's like this guy saves Christmas, and it's just like it's such a corny, goofy Christmas movie that celebrates it and loves it and just isn't afraid of it being, sort of like overly sweet and fun. And I just, yeah, the child in me just absolutely does loves it. And again, shout out to Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
Like
It would
Iron
go
Man,
on.
Mandalorian, Elf,
Yeah.
like this guy's just made one masterpiece after another, and I just like I'm blown away by like how was one of his like throwaway, well, not even a throwaway film, but one of his films just become one of my all-time favorite Christmas classics. And it's just like so against my character, but it's like it's just such a fun film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised, James, because you never mentioned How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Which I have to say, like, if we're talking about films we watch every Christmas, again, the only things I try to watch every Christmas are Die Hard, the two Office Christmas specials, and what the hell else did I say? I don't know. The Nostalgia Critic Countdown. But
Yeah.
when I think about my nephews growing up, I can't imagine them growing up without How the Grinch Stole Christmas. That's the word.
Which version though? Because there's now 3 of them.
Okay, obviously the original version.
The Boris Karloff.
Unfortunately, my nephews are growing up with the new version, which they love, which I
The
hate.
Benedict Cumberbatch one?
Yeah, which I hate that
I
they
haven't seen
love.
that one.
They think it's great. They watch it, which is it's maybe it's just the old curmudgeon in me, like watch the original, But
Yeah.
that's obviously it's like a 20-minute film. It's perfect the way it is. Watch it. You should watch it. I should maybe watch it this Christmas just to familiarize myself with it. I love that it's basically a direct translation of the book, which is something you don't get these days. It's just like here's the book and here's the movie, and it's like the same thing. But
yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the Jim Carrey version, which part of me absolutely loves. Part of me is like, I don't know if I still love it anymore. I don't know. Because just like it's a different time, and I don't know if like is that just nostalgia? But like there's some great moments in that too, and just the Jim Carrey chewing the scenery, which I absolutely love. Like just being Jim Carrey to the nth degree, with like fuzzy fingers and bizarre teeth, and I someone pointed out a fascinating and heartbreaking thing that we can end on about that film is that everything that he owns in that film comes from Whoville. It's all stuff that like was dumped there from like when they're done with Christmas, they just dump all this stuff in the trash and ends up on his mountain. And that's where all of his stuff comes from. And when he left Whoville, because he grew up there, he left with nothing. And he went up there with nothing. Where did Max come from? Where did his dog come from?
I don't know. It's a legitimate
If
question.
everything he owns came from stuff that people dumped after Christmas,
Yeah.
where did his dog come from?
He was dumped after Christmas.
Which is so heartbreaking. And I'm kind of glad they didn't address that. But like everyone I've seen come to that realization of like, oh my God, I can't see that movie the same way again. Because that is just heartbreaking. Unfortunately, it actually happens in real life where people get their kids a pet for Christmas and then don't think it through, and then they end up like abandoning the pet. But
Well, that happened to my grandma. She got a dog for my aunt got her a dog for Christmas, and my mom was like, "You don't get someone a pet for Christmas when they don't ask for it." And then she ended up giving it away, which ended up going to someone who would become one of my close friends, who I didn't know until years later. And I asked her where about her dog, and it was a really weird situation where I found out that my friend had bought my grandma's dog. Anyway, but yes, that happens.
Yeah, so that's my Christmas list of like must-see films that I see every year. I mean, we could spend all day talking about like I was looking on Rotten Tomatoes and there's like hundreds of classic Christmas films and Christmas specials, and like you said, like The Office has a bunch of them, and
Oh yeah.
like all kinds of shows have like Christmas specials that are great to
You talked
watch.
about a
And
lot about the Community one. I was surprised you didn't reference the Community Christmas episode, stop motion animation. I was expecting to hear that from you.
I like that one, but I don't like it as a Christmas special. I like it as a commentary on Christmas specials, because it's very cynical. Like, I mean, it's Community. It's so cynical and it's so dark, and it is unfortunately about sort of Ovid's. I mean, it's no secret that Ovid probably is on the spectrum and has a hard time dealing with change. And of course, the story is that his mother's not there for Christmas, and it's the first time that she won't be, and she has a new family now. And even though he's like an adult now, he's still sort of a kid, and it's like hard for him to deal with. So they go into this like Rankin and Bass stop motion animation special, dealing with sort of the inner psyche and John Oliver, who I don't know why they dumped him partway through the show, because he's just an absolutely brilliant character on that show. It's trying to be his therapist, and it's just like not working. And like everybody kind of comes together in the end in this like hokey sort of like, hey, look, we're doing a Christmas special, so everyone has to be friends at the end kind of deal. And it's like, it's great, but I think it's better as aren't Christmas specials weird kind of thing? But yeah, I definitely enjoy that one too. So that's a good call.
Well, before we leave, I just want to say it's great to be here on December 23rd, Christmas Eve, with my good friend James Sheridan. For those who don't know, James, you and I met on the Force.net message boards about close to 20 years ago.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Thought we now we're finally. This was the first face-to-face conversation we've had when I invited you to do ReelTime, and it's great to be here with you on Christmas Eve. I'm glad to have you as a friend.
You too. Yeah, I'm very grateful that you're having me on your show, both you and Josh. I've really enjoyed having these conversations, and I mean, this year has not been a great year, so it's been a nice reprieve to be able to come on here. And again, like you said, we've been friends in like a text sort of sense, like discussing on message boards and private chat and Facebook and whatnot, but this has allowed us to kind of get to know each other in as face-to-face as we're going to get in 2020 sort of way. So this has been great. And yeah, Merry Christmas to you, and Merry Christmas to all the people out there, all you movie fans and people who aren't movie fans who are watching because you enjoy watching Christmas special stuff. And happy belated Hanukkah to all of my Jewish friends. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy purchasing of gifts to all of my, agnostic and atheist friends. And whatever else you celebrate, just be with family and safely be with family and have fun.
Absolutely. And Merry Christmas to Josh, who's hopefully watching this. And
yes,
thank you for creating ReelTime and having us be a part of it. So until next time, guys, I'm Ryan Murphy.
And I'm James Sheridan.
And thank you for keeping it real
with ReelTime. Good night.